So in this video, let's talk about should you be using a Facebook lead form or a landing page, and which one is actually better for agency leads. So number one, let's talk about the Facebook lead form. I'll go over some pros and cons, and then we'll go over to the landing page. So the number one pro of a lead form is you have very, very fast testing. So you could basically pump out ad creatives, you could pump out angles, you could pump out offers very fast, and then you will get market feedback on those, and then you can reiterate from there. Number two is basically you'll get cheaper cost per lead, so you'll get a lot of people into the funnel. And number three is there'll be a lot of volume of leads. So because the cost per lead is generally lower on the Facebook lead form, you have a lot more volume, and then you could really test out your creative, your offer, and also the copy of the Facebook ad. And then the last thing is basically there's less variables to combat. So it's essentially like the questions you have on your lead form, the creative, or the copy. That's the main things that you need to test. So there's not many variables in terms of actually testing to actually see like what is hurting your click-through rate, what is hurting your conversion rates. Now let's get into the cons. So the number one con is they're going to be unserious or lower quality of prospects on the lead form as compared to the landing page. Because the barrier to actually fill out a lead form, people can do it drunk, they can autofill it out. You have funnel hackers, you have bots basically filling out the lead form. It's very low barrier entry. However, if you do put conditionals on the lead form, it makes the quality a little bit better. And also you don't have to test out a new landing page. Second thing is in terms of like the cost per lead, it's all a vanity metric. At the end of the day, the main thing is your LTV per customer and also your customer acquisition cost, which is CAC. So with all this is you just really need to track your CAC. Your cost per lead is essentially just for testing out the creatives, the offer, the copy, and then whichever has the cheaper cost per lead, which to be honest, there's a lot of variables that could play in terms of like cost per book qualified call, CAC as well, and then your closing rates determined on what your copy is. So at the end of the day, it's not an all-in solution, but for the most part, if you use lead forms, it's going to be a vanity metric, and you really need to go track what your CAC is or cost per book qualified call. And then the third thing and last thing is basically you'll get a lot of unqualified people coming into the funnel. So people might be lying about the current revenue mark that they have in their business or stuff like that. So you have a lot of unqualified prospects on the lead form because it's so easy to fill out. Now let's get over to the landing page and let's go talk about the pros. So for the landing page, the number one pro is going to be higher quality in terms of like more people have to go off the site of Facebook and then they have to go to a new website, they have to fill out their form and then stuff like that. So it makes the barrier entry to actually opt in as a lead much higher. So all the people that come in are going to be generally more serious. And then you'll have a better show up rate whenever it's actually self-booked from the landing page versus a lead form. However, it does depend on a lot of variables. This is just what I've seen. However, you can increase your show up rates with other things like Hammer Them strategy by Jeremy Haynes, where you're constantly nurturing them in terms of your Facebook to YouTube content, and then you shoot that out in the email. And then you're also directly targeting serious buyers because it's harder to fill out a landing page lead versus a Facebook lead form. You're generally going to get more serious people. They need to change their business. They want to change their business. So that's the people that are going to opt in. And then you can also pre-frame with a VSL on the landing page for the lead opt-in as well. So there's a lot more variables you could test. You could test out the header. You could test out how you organize the lead form page. And there's a bunch of things you could test and increase your click-through rates. And then you can have a long form copy. You can split test with a short form copy. So there's a lot of ways you can optimize. While on the other side, in terms of the lead form, there's only like the questions and then the basic snippet that you have whenever they first open the form. Now let's go over to the cons of the landing page. So because you could basically test out everything since it's a brand new site, a squeeze page, there's a lot more variables in terms of the landing page. So if your copy is not good or your design's not good or you don't really have the fastest website to load it up. So let's say a prospect is on mobile data and they don't have the fastest internet. For the most part, they're probably going to click off, right? So your ascension rate from a Facebook ad to a lead is going to be lower if your page load speed is very slow. And then you're going to get generally higher cost per lead. I've done both. Sometimes I run it concurrently, And then for the landing page, generally the cost per lead will be a little bit higher. But at the end of the day, the only true thing that matters is the CAC and also LTV. And then on top of that, you have slower angle and creative testing. Because there's going to be less volume and then cost per lead is going to be higher, you're not going to be able to test and rapid test all your creatives and copy and offers on the front end. So for the most part, landing page, you should try to use it, but not in the beginning. And then last thing is you need better KPIs tracking for book calls. So with the lead form, you could see the cost per lead directly on Facebook. But then if you have a GHL squeeze page or you have another ClickFunnels squeeze page, you have to send that data back to Facebook. And for us, we use Hyros, but if you're just beginning, Hyros is a little bit on the expensive side in terms of software, so maybe you don't want to do that. So now I'll give you actionable steps on when should you use a Facebook lead form and when should you use a landing page. So here's my advice. Number one, start out with lead forms. And you want to transition later to a landing page. However, you should not stop what's currently working. If lead forms are working, the quality is great, you have cheap cost per lead, you have cheap CAC, just keep doing what's working. You don't need to switch to a landing page just because some person or some guru online told you to go ahead and switch to a landing page. Just keep on what's working, whatever's producing results, just keep with it. And then if lead forms are working, like I mentioned, just don't touch it. Right? You're going to see Facebook, you're going to watch this video, you're going to watch another video. Maybe the other video says you have to use landing page, and then you listen to them and then your performance tanks. So even if you were to test out the landing page, keep what's working on Facebook and just keep that ad live and then allocate a little bit of budget to the landing page. And then at the end of the day, see which one's better. The next thing is you could qualify harder on the lead forms. And for the most part, people will lie on the forms. So you really need to call out a richer audience. Even if you were to call out pool builders above 80K a month, some people, they might come in, they're only doing 10K a month, but 10 years back, they're doing 80K a month. So you really need to filter out every single person that doesn't have the budget for marketing. I know a lot of people say that you can't present the price ahead of time, but for us, like we want to save time for me. I want to save time for my closers. And sometimes we present the price, sometimes we don't. But for the most part, if we present the price, we'll know ahead of time and then show up and it won't be a surprise to them. However, there's been times where we presented a price, they show up to a call, they still didn't know the price. So for the most part, I would just split test it, present your price, or do not present the price, especially if it's cold traffic and then they might have talked to other agencies. So you really need to rely on your sales abilities. I'll just split test it, to be honest, but if you're beginning, just don't present the price. And then last thing is you include a VSL on the booking page, so you could pre-frame in emails, sequences, and text before the call. So even if you're using lead form or landing page, we need to be pre-framing all the leads that come in because these are very cold leads. They're not a referral lead. They don't know who you are. They can't trust you. You're a random stranger on the internet. Why should they even give you money to do what you say you're going to do for them? So for example, one thing that we have is even our landing page is pretty simple. So this is a very similar landing page to what we show to our prospects. And for the most part, if you want a lead form, you could send it to a VSL, pretty short, keep it under 5 minutes, and then you can have your calendar down below. And then maybe some FAQs as well if it's on your booking page. But this is our opt-in lead form page. And what we need to be doing is also sending out all the YouTube content in the emails. And then I'll make another video about how we should actually structure that. Basically, in those email sequences, we need to be handling all the objections that will come up ahead of time. So that way they go onto the sales call, they've watched all the content on our YouTube, and they're so much easier to close and show up versus somebody that's just cold traffic and you're going to get atrocious 20% show up rates. So if you enjoyed this video, I'll go ahead and attach a link down in the description for my school community where we basically just show you the ads we're running, we show you the funnels, we show you our sales scripts, we show you what actually to sell if you don't have any offers currently, and if you want to sell AI solutions to local contractors. So click the link in school if you want to join. If not, I'll see you in the next video.